Oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, we have a brand new cinematic that just dropped for Fire Emblem Engage, and this one is pretty huge. It shows no gameplay, but a lot of cinematic clips, and from this trailer we can actually derive a lot of information. So without further ado, let's get into it and analyze the whole thing from start to finish. The trailer opens up with Alar on the floor, cradling a dying woman in his arms who seems to be either the queen of a nation or some kind of archbishop. She's begging Alar to gather the 12 rings and tells him when that happens, that is when his scattered memories will return to him. So yeah, it looks like we are once again going to have a main character suffering from amnesia. Very original. It seems like by discovering these rings, we will unlock fragments of Alar's past and gradually learn about his backstory as we play through the game. We then see Alar using the ring to summon Marth. We've seen this sequence before, but this scene is a little more extensive and shows us more of Marth's
I am known as
lines.
Marth.
He introduces
Emblem
himself
Marth,
not as Marth,
to be clear.
but as Emblem Marth, which is an interesting little detail. And he says that he was able to answer the summons because Alar is now able to remember him, indicating that they have some kind of past together. We then see a clip of the Fell Dragon in both its draconic and humanoid form, something we've also seen before, but a little bit more extensive this time around. Then we get to see a small conversation between Alar and Marth, where Alar asks Marth what he was like, and Marth answers that Alar was as he is now, kind. Man, you know a protagonist is gonna be bland when kind is the first word they describe them as. Marth then tells him that there's no need to remember everything at once. This is interesting because this tells us that Alar and Marth has some kind of a connection or a history together. I can't help but wonder if this game will attempt to do a massive retcon on previously established Fire Emblem lore. I hope they won't go down the path of telling us that Alar was actually with Marth during the events of his game, or that he was some kind of character central to Arcanea that the game just conveniently didn't tell us about, similar to how Chris was shoehorned into New Mystery of the Emblem. I have some pretty significant worries about this, but due to the fact that Marth introduces himself as Emblem Marth, my theory is that these are spirits that are actually summoned from the afterlife. I don't think we're dragging these heroes away from their main world while they are still alive and kicking around in their main games. Rather, I think there is some kind of Fire Emblem heaven where heroes go to rest, and Alar might have been part of that dimension a long time ago since he is a divine dragon, which is why Emblem Marth remembers him. This is just speculation, of course, but I think this would make the most sense as far as the storytelling goes. Up next, we get to see a clip of Prince Alfred riding his horse towards the camera and then asking the Divine One, which I assume is Alar, if he wants to help them. He asks him to come with him to Fyern, which is the name of his continent, not Fyrene as I have previously pronounced it. We then cut over to our first glance at the continent of Brodia. Really? Brodia. That's an excellent name. And we get to see 3 brand new characters, a blue-haired archer, what appears to be a sword-wielding knight, and a blonde mage or priests. And we get told that Brodia is the kingdom of might, as we see a close-up of the crown prince. I get major Rigel vibes from this nation, especially with how they call themselves the kingdom of might. I get the impression that these guys are going to be the strong people who likes fighting. We then go over to be introduced to another brand new kingdom. This one is called Solm or Solm, I'm not entirely sure. And they state that they are an open-minded kingdom who has long had good relationships with Fyern. We get to see a clip of the dancer girl that was seen vaulting around the pole in the first trailer. Looking at her now, I think she might not be a dancer, but actually some kind of body arts user. And she also seems to be cooking food. She appears upbeat and full of energy, and she strikes me as the kind of girl who likes to take care of others and cook them delicious meals, which I think is going to make her a fan favorite in the community. This is followed up by a clip of another character from the same nation, though it's hard to say what class he is. Some kind of magic user or bard maybe? It's difficult to say just from this one clip. He's shown giving a bit of a smirk, and he seems to be a bit of a playboy. Right after this, we get introduced to yet another nation. This time it's the continent of Elusia, which is stated to not be in the Alliance, and we learn that some of its inhabitants worship the Fell Dragon. So basically, these guys are Plagia from Awakening, except that they're a winter nation instead of a desert one. We then get to see 3 brand new characters. One young female whose design is all over the place, but she gives me some slight Harley Quinn/female Joker vibes. She's flanked by 2 other females, one wielding a massive sword and another one wielding a massive axe. I'm assuming they're her retainers, and that this girl might be the princess of the nation? We also get to see Alar in this clip, flanked by the blue-haired archer, so it's quite apparent that we will be fighting against Elusia in the game itself. My guess is that they're the ones seeking to revive the Fell Dragon. We then see a clip of the sultry mage that has caught a lot of people's eyes in the first trailer, and we see what appears to be a wyvern behind her. So this might very well be a malignite we're seeing, not a mage or sage like some people first anticipated. She claims she's here to take our lives, our souls, and our rings. So apparently Elusia is on a quest to gather the rings too, but that was pretty easy to figure out. I have a solid feeling that she will be one of the more popular female characters in Engage. We then get to see a clip of this evil Garnef/Valadar looking priest talking to what I assume is the Fell Dragon in his humanoid form. The priest says he is not yet at his full strength. Not sure if he's talking about the Fell Dragon or Alar, it could be either of them I suppose. But my guess is that the more rings they gather, the more powerful the Fell Dragon becomes, and that he will eventually be able to take his draconic form when they've gathered enough of the rings. Up next is a very brief clip of someone grabbing the sword of this guy, who I am 99% sure is the king of Brodia and the father of this crown prince guy that we saw earlier. This man has Fire Emblem Dad written all over him, which means that he's going to die within the first 10 chapters of the game, or possibly as early as the intro cinematic. Up next, we get an introduction of what I assume will be the 4 villainous generals of this game. This is a true and tested trope of many older Fire Emblem games, and I fully expect them to bring it back here. I will say that as a group, these characters do not look good. It kinda looks like someone pushed the randomize button when creating their character in an MMO. If these characters truly are the 4 generals of Elusia, like I suspect they are, it would make a lot more sense for them to have matching armor designs to make them look like a cohesive unit, but they are just all over the place. From left to right, we see some guy dressed in green. He looks like he could either be a magic or a body arts user. Then we have some sultry Aversa looking magic girl who might be some kind of a dark flyer. And then we see the Joker girl from earlier. And lastly, on the right, there is some kind of armor knight general. I would estimate that if any of these quote-unquote evil generals are recruitable, it's probably this guy. He's giving me some pretty big Ducel vibes from Sacred Stones. He's also the only one of the 4 generals who appear a little bit sad or downtrodden when a close-up of his face is shown, indicating that he's not completely on board with the rest of the gang. If he's not recruitable, he might very well be this game's Camus. The sultry Aversa lady then says, "Kill every last one of them!" We then get to see an action shot of a bunch of characters fighting at once. We see Alar fighting, we see the Prince of Brodia using an emblem ring summoning Roy, a brief clip of Emblem Celica, another short clip of this Tiki lookalike girl who I am pretty sure is a Manakete, and she says she's looking for someone, the someone most likely being Alar. We then get to see a flashing montage of several characters, some who we know, others we don't. We see Louie, Chloe, a red-haired girl who we have not been introduced to yet, but she looks like a thief, a blonde armor knight who is looking mighty fine, one of my favorite designs in Engage so far. We also see Marth and Alar tag teaming a dude, and both of them just miss. That's a pretty impressive dodge, honestly. We then see 2 brand new characters who we have not yet been introduced to, a blonde armored man and another guy who appears to be some kind of mage. It's kinda hard to tell. We then see another clip of Alar fighting and the dancer lady from before fighting next to Emblem Ike, and we get to see Prince Alfred fighting next to Lucina. So lots of new emblems being revealed in this trailer already. This is followed up by another clip of Alar and Marth fighting side by side, with Marth saying that he will never leave his side no matter what. But that turns out to be a lie, because then we get the big reveal that many of us had predicted, but maybe not quite in the way that we predicted it. We are told that the emblems are not just an us thing, and that the enemy can summon them too. Up until now, most of us have speculated that the villains from Engage will be able to use their rings to summon villains from past games. But while that may still happen, it appears that they're taking a slightly different approach. The villains can summon the same heroes as we can, but they are evil versions. Yes, we are first shown the clip of evil Lyn stringing her bow against the King of Brodia, and I'm just gonna say, if Lyn ends up being the character who kills this dad, then that's going to be pretty hilarious, and I think a lot of Lyn fanboys will not be happy with that, considering Lyn has a pretty tragic backstory with her own parents. We then get another clip of what I think is evil Lucina being summoned to fight against Alar. It's a bit hard to tell since we can only see her from the back, but I'm pretty sure it's her. And then lastly, we get to see evil Marth being summoned and screaming in agony as his hair is colored red. No, don't do it, Marth. Don't become a punk character, no. So, yeah, I will admit, evil reskinned version of the heroes is a little lazy. I was really looking forward to seeing the enemy summoning characters like Arvis, Nurgle, Ashnard, Lion, Gangrel, Sephiel, and the like. And while that may still happen, I have a hunch they're only going to focus on the main characters shown in the intro reel of the trailer. So far, they've told us that there are 12 rings, so that probably means 12 emblems in total, and maybe a few extra ones as DLC. I mean, let's be real guys, they are totally going to add a couple extra rings with DLC characters. It will happen. Seeing this trailer, I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on how the story of this game is going to play out based on my previous knowledge of Fire Emblem games. It's pretty clear that Elusia is going to be the main driving force of this conflict, declaring war on the other nations to gather the emblem rings. I'm assuming they're the ones responsible for the dying lady we see at the start of the trailer, and I'm guessing this takes place right after they pillage some kind of shrine holding the emblem ring, or that maybe this lady was the one wearing or guarding it. I'm guessing that by gathering the rings, Elusia will slowly be able to build up the power of the Fell Dragon who we see walking around in his human form in some of the cutscenes. I'm guessing that once all rings are gathered, he can assume his full snake-like draconic form, and that the closer he comes to reawakening, the more of these corrupted soldiers will pop up all over the world. It's pretty obvious that we're going to be playing as Alar as he gathers an army to fight Elusia, gather all the magic rings, but for some reason towards the end of the game, the Fell Dragon is going to be awakened anyway, and we're all going to have to fight him. Maybe the villains will just steal all our rings once we've gathered them or something. This is pretty much as traditional and cookie-cutter Fire Emblem as it can get, and I'm estimating that we're going to get a story that might not be great, but hopefully not as bad as Fate's. I'm estimating that maybe it'll be around Awakening tier. My overall stance on Engage still hasn't changed. I am not excited for the story at all, and I think certain parts of the lore is going to be very cringe, especially how they plan to incorporate all these emblems, but I am very much excited for the gameplay. What do you guys think? Did this trailer make you more or less hopeful for the game? I'd love to hear your answers in the comment section below, and let me know if there's any small details I missed that might be relevant to the story. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, like and subscribe for more Engage news, and you can also check out the playlist linked in front of you to be caught up to date on everything I've covered about the game so far. Until then, my name has been Mengs, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye!